Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. I'm Brian Winnikins on this Thursday morning as we continue our spotlight on the Koller family farms. They are this year's hosts of the Pepin County Town and Country Dairy Breakfast this Saturday. Thank you to Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin for sponsoring our look at the dairy industry and about some of the things our local dairy farmers are doing to not only protect their cows, but also to protect the land, the water, and really even to protect you as well. And John, thanks for joining us. Now you're kind of the crop guy, aren't you? You seem to do a lot of stuff out in the fields.
Yeah, I do. Not too many decisions around here get made, just Dad or just I. We discuss everything. But he generally will take care of the cows, and then, chore time, has to happen twice a day. So he'll take care of the chores that I would normally do, feeding calves, feeding animals outside, so I can be out in the field and, put in longer hours when when it necessitates. Things only go so fast, so hours is how you get more done in a day.
So when you and your dad, what are some of the things you and your dad do to protect the land? Because where the farm is at, not only here but also on your grandfather's land that you purchased, very thin soil, very subject to potential erosion. And so what are some of the things you do to protect that?
Yeah, we're very sandy here. We like to joke that we farm beach sand. And wind is probably our biggest killer, blows very easily. So in the last number of years, we've made an investment. Biggest one has been a no-till planter, and we've been able to no-till probably 95% this year. We even no-tilled our alfalfa for the first time ever. And then we've also started doing more cover cropping, mostly just with cereal rye, but it's a way to hold the soil in place. When the wind blows, we look out back and we don't see our dirt blowing, and it's really hard to put a number on what you're losing or not losing with the wind erosion, because how do you measure how much of your topsoil is? And people in Illinois or Iowa might talk about having 20 inches or 22 inches of black dirt. We have a little bit of black sand, and then it's sand. So we don't, we need to protect everything we have to keep last year's nutrients there, keep organic matter there, and do what we can to preserve what we have, because we don't have lots of inches of good black dirt.
Talking with John Koller this morning with Koller Farms. They're this year's host of the Pepin County Town and Country Dairy Breakfast. Now, because you don't, no-till means you don't tear up the soil before you plant. You just plant right over what you had last year, like the corn stalks from last year. You just plant over that.
Yeah. Our typical rotation is beans into old corn stalks and then corn into beans, which is where we do the cover cropping. We'll put rye into the bean stubble. For the most part, we've found ourselves broadcasting it with just a fertilizer spreader and then using a rotary hoe just to tickle the top and get a little bit better stand than just broadcasting it. A little bit more reasonable than drilling it, which we don't have a drill. And so that's how we do that.
And so because you've done that, the ground not only can hold your nutrients, but it can also hold more water when we get heavy rain, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Organic matter, is what's going to help hold that moisture. And so if we can raise our organic matter a bit, that's going to gain us more water holding capacity. And then if we do have a dry spell, we need an inch of rain every week for sure, or else we start drying up, and you can see that in the crops. So if we can increase our organic matter, that's going to increase our water holding capacity. And, if we do get past that week where we haven't gotten rain, which hasn't been a problem this spring, but if we get past that, that's going to help increase our crop yield, increase the amount of feed we're going to have for our cattle, and all those sorts of things.
Another way that you can increase your organic matter is obviously the manure from the cows. You're recycling that, but you can't spread it all the time, right?
Yeah, we have a manure pit. We used to spread just once a year. We've gone to spread twice a year, and we use that on the closer by corn ground. Not super heavy. We even no-till into that. So we spread the manure on old rye, that we've terminated in the spring, and then we no-till right into that, and just real thin so that we don't have deep manure to go through or anything. And then that has a lot of nutrients and a lot of micronutrients in it, which everybody knows about the potash and that sort of thing, but it's the micronutrients that are becoming more of a bigger thing. And so that's where we gain a lot of that with the organic matter in the manure.
Talking with John Kohler this morning, so for you and your dad, when do you decide to spread that manure? Because you don't want to have runoff, especially into any type of surface water. So how do you determine to do that?
We try to make sure that it's not going to rain within the next few days. That gives it a chance to dry out a little bit, stick to the ground a little bit. And then, of course, with the rye cover crop, that helps with water runoff and not having that and controlling it. And we have a couple waterways. I mean, we're relatively flat. You could hardly hide a tractor behind our biggest hill. So we don't struggle quite with the runoff like some other people that definitely farm, the hills of Buffalo County per se.
Now, what about other fertilizers like nitrogen? Do you use that, and do you have to try to watch how much you use on that too?
Yeah, we everything we do at the farm, we work with somebody that's way smarter than us. So a nutritionist, the cow's nutrition, we work with a nutritionist. So we work with an agronomist. He puts out recommendations of what we need based off what our projected yield is going to be, based off soil samples. It's not an every year thing, but every 4 or 5 years we'll soil sample, see what the levels are, and then we go off that recommendation from our agronomist that, hey, here's how much, here's what the manure is going to allot us. If we don't have manure, then here's how much commercial fertilizer we'll use. Split application so that we're not dumping it all on right away and having leachability. And that's another perk of the cover crop is it'll, take some of that up, and then, the give or take within 30 days is when it's going to start releasing those nutrients back. And so then by the time you terminate, you have your starter fertilizer, you terminate your rye. Now in 30 days, you're getting a little bit more fertilizer, and then you top dress corn. So it's about baby spoons.
And that's all really, not only you don't want to over fertilize the soil, but you also don't want it into your groundwater, because that groundwater is what the cows drink, and the cows need to have clean water.
Yeah, I mean, and we drink the same water too. We don't want to, pollute the water that we're drinking ourselves. And, it's about water quality. And don't forget that we are in a business of making money, and we don't want to spend money that's not going to be beneficial either. So we only want to put out what the crop's going to use, make sure we aren't leaching through the ground into the water and preserving it that way.
Talking with John Kohler this morning, him and his dad and entire family with Koller Farms, this year's host of the Pepin County Town and Country Dairy Breakfast. John, I've known you since I put the station back on the air. You're the guy that likes technology. Your dad, he's a little old school. You like the drone, you like all of those things. So can you take that precision agriculture, that technology, do you try to use that out in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. We put a yield monitor on a 1997, I think, combine, and now we're able to variable rate plant. So especially, behind the buildings here where we have cow pasture, one end of the field we pasture, the other end we don't. We have some sandier knobs, so we'll variable rate plant that. And, we'll plant a higher population where the soil's a little better, plant a little less, increases yield. We're not wasting seed. There's prescription fertilizer, so prescription everything. And so it's all about putting the right thing at the right place to, get the most bang for the buck, but also preserve and make sure you're not over applying somewhere.
Because again, it's all about the cows, and John's the one that has to make that feed or help make that feed for all the cows to make the milk so the farm can make the money. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk with John's sister, Marissa, and we're going to talk a little bit about this year's Pepin County Dairy Breakfast. And I've known John and Marissa for a long time, and sometimes brother and sister like to kind of go after each other, but they won't do that now because they're so much older. But we're going to talk with Marissa a little bit about tomorrow's dairy, or the Saturday's dairy breakfast here at the Koller Family Farms. Again, thank you to Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin for supporting our spotlight on the dairy industry. I'm Brian Winnikins. This is WRDN.